I want to go now to Wall Street Journal reporter Rebecca Davis O'Brien. She's on the phone. She broke the story along with her colleagues. Rebecca, how significant could this story be when you talk about how they're looking for possible corruption? One suspects, given how sleazy inaugural committees just are in general, and how rich people give a lot of money, and then ultimately, in the course of any administration, those rich people tend to benefit from one policy or another. Based on your reporting, how far along the path are they?
Well, what we've reported is that the investigation is still in its early stages, but some people have been asked questions about their donations and about the committee's spending. Obviously, there was a huge amount of money involved here, more than has ever been recorded in the inaugural fund, and there have been questions swirling around this committee and how it spent its money and the sort of outsized costs involved for months now, and this just shows that some of the materials that were seized in the Cohen raids and the Michael Cohen raids earlier this year could play a role in other investigations.
You mentioned former Melania Trump aide who had left the administration, and how she expressed, according to a recording, expressed concern to Michael Cohen about how money was being spent. There was about $103 million raised for the inaugural committee. Does the inaugural committee, are they able to account for that money?
Well, one thing is it's important to note that they don't have to account for everything they spent. It's a nonprofit, but they did disclose in tax filings that were described earlier this year, and they disclosed their top 5 biggest expenses, their biggest contractors, and some of them, there were some eye-popping figures there. $25 million went to one event planning service, another $25.8 million went to this business founded or started by the former Melania Trump aide. But this recording is about, some concerns that she was evidently expressing to Mr. Cohen about how the inaugural committee was being run and how it was spending money.
Now, you also note in this article, you refer to this Tennessee developer, Frank Haney. He made a $1 million donation to the inaugural committee, the president's inaugural committee. And then in early April, he hired Michael Cohen, who at the same time was also Trump's lawyer, to help obtain a $5 billion loan from the Energy Department for a nuclear power plant. This is also from a journal previous reporting. And he's been asked questions about these documents. I mean, Michael Cohen being in that deal is obviously something that federal investigators and prosecutors will be interested in.
Right. I think that there's an element here about Mr. Cohen, who, obviously Michael Cohen's been at the center of a lot of the news recently, but he was considered an access point to Donald Trump. We forget that he at one point was a real insider here, and Mr. Haney's role or his interactions with Michael Cohen suggest that. And again, he was a big donor to the inaugural fund, so.
But are they looking, do you have any sense, and I know the investigation's early and such, but do you have any sense that this is just something else that they're looking at Michael Cohen about, or is this broader than just Michael Cohen? Because, if you have here in the story this former Melania Trump aide, Ms. Wolkoff, talking about concerns about how money's being spent. You have Michael Cohen as a focal point of a rich guy trying to get a $5 billion loan and giving $1 million to the inaugural committee. Do you sense that this is beyond Michael Cohen or focused just on him?
Well, I don't think the focus is necessarily, as far as we know, on him. He didn't have an official role in the inaugural, but at the time he was close to the White House and during the transition period. So it makes sense that he would be a person that people involved in this inaugural would reach out to. From what we understand, it's beyond him, though. It's the people who are giving big money and the people who were in charge of making expenditures for the inaugural events themselves.
And it sounds like he was keeping a whole lot of documentation about things that people didn't want him to be keeping a documentation about.
Yeah, the recordings are, the things that were seized from the raid, they keep popping up here and there. Some of them were referred to in the government's sentencing memo. So, this is another example of a piece of recorded conversation that has since then become potential evidence in a criminal investigation.
Right. Just like similarly, the Journal reported, I think it was you, about the American Media Incorporated, the National Enquirer's parent company, David Pecker, and this whole question about whether or not their hiring of the Playboy Playmate of the Year, with whom President Trump allegedly had an affair, hiring her, and whether or not President Trump was going to pay her back. And Pecker got advice. This is all from your reporting. Pecker got advice from his lawyer. Don't do that because then it'll be a campaign expense and an illegal one at that. And he told Michael Cohen to shred the document and take it from there. What did Michael Cohen do with the document?
He did not shred that document. It was seized in the raid.
So that's obviously the point here. He was keeping everything. He was recording everything. And so it's not just about payoffs to alleged mistresses, but potentially quid pro quos that he was possibly, at least according to your story, you're reporting in the Manhattan District U.S. Attorney, possibly setting up. Oh, he'll give this much money if he can get such and such down the road, and maybe he has documentation of that.
Yeah, I think that we don't know all the contents that were seized in that raid, but it does seem like there are still potential investigative threads emerging from that Cohen investigation.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much. Excellent reporting. That's Rebecca Davis O'Brien, one of the 3 reporters that just broke the Wall Street Journal story about the Trump Inauguration Committee and its spending being under criminal investigation by the feds right now.